Hi there, Phyllis Serene here with Sunday Commentary. And it is July 15th, and I will tell you the news has not been really practical in my opinion. What has led my feeds has been the U.S. President in England stirring up controversy with breaking traditional monarchy respect habits, which I have really no opinion on. And the need to focus on what really matters kept coming to my heart and mind. And I kept hearing and seeing the words breaking news, and I kept going, well, there is no breaking news that really seems to matter. And so I looked it up, and Google gave me a definition for how the term's been used. But lo and behold, what came up in my newsfeed was an interview by a woman I'd never heard of, Patty Greer, who is a documentarian who did award-winning videos on crop circles. And her interviews, which she started doing with different folks around the planet, and one of those interviews was with a former judge, um, Alfred Lambremont Weber. And this gentleman, an American with Native American bloods, and he says he's got a few bloodlines going through his body, talks about his experience in the 9/11 Council, reviewing what happened and why, as well as he was a judge on the war crimes tribunals that were held in Malaysia that found Bush guilty of war crimes, which is why he can't travel as he used to. So I paid attention and I went, oh, there's some depths, and this is not just some guy in his backyard reading a couple books from, Graham Hancock or David Wilcox and coming up with a theory. He has a pretty serious background. And one of the pieces I found most interesting about his work in this interview, and you'll have the links there, is his connecting the 9/11 in particular to Israel, its spiritual Kabbalah, as well as its off-planet history. And that was, okay, now I got to pay attention a little more. And his website is called News Inside Out. He's got another site called Exopolitics, where he looks at the extraterrestrial influences on our people and our planet. And we, basically we're a prison planet for a reason. We are easily manipulated species, easily programmable species, and we have been programmed over for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of generations, with the storyline of how we got here and what's the purpose of our existence. And that was probably the first thing to me at the age of 8, when I realized there's got to be more to this life than just this. Born, make more babies, go to work, die, and do it again. We get the rains coming on a Sunday afternoon here on the farm, so I hope I'm loud enough to be heard. But I wanted to encourage you to go down the rabbit hole of research and look deeper, go as deep as you can. One of the things I find most interesting with the closing of YouTube and Facebook groups around health and wellness, as well as real insiders who are digging out information, because they need to shut them down, and I'm not surprised and expect them to do more of it. And as we live in times where truth has to be something you discern, not just something you accept because it sounds good, or go to Snopes.com, which is definitely a shill website, but you have to use your own discernment skills. Now, let me also go back and mention that we have 5 intelligence systems of the body. We have a spiritual, which is clustered in the pineal gland. We have the brain and the prefrontal cortex, which has been subject to programming. And then we have the heart, which has got its own neural clusters that is The best way to drive, in my opinion, we have instinctual knowledge, which is the largest of the brains because it requires, it save us. It's the oldest of our brains. And we have sexual intelligence as well, which we've all been driven or had that manipulated or thrown in front of us, whether we want to pay attention to it or not. So because we have these 5 brain areas, we have intelligence and we can make decisions based on those. So everything shouldn't be coming out of the brain. So a lot of times the brain has been hijacked by programming. And there is a Dr. Gavin de Becker who wrote the book The Gift of Fear, who was a forensic psychologist who talked to rape victims. And one of his findings from that work was that each victim knew instinctively this was a bad situation. But their second thought was their mind's words, and that, what would their mother say? Are they not being nice? Or they're not giving them a chance, and disregarding the instinctual knowledge their bodies have. And men tend to be stronger in instinctual knowledge than women do, and it's because we have been more subject to programming than men have. We buy, we believe, we try. So we need sometimes that protection of our easy believableness. I say gullible, basically. It's what I've determined for myself. I'm just too darn gullible sometimes. And I have worked on those areas and spent last 5 years looking at those 5 areas of intelligence and how do we develop those. So I have done the non-traditional way, coming to the East, study what the Taoists and the Buddhists and those folks knew, as well as doing the shamanic medicine journeys and ayahuasca and Kambo and DMT to understand what's on the other side and not just for the party. I don't find the experiences all that pleasant. And particularly the purgative ones, they're very unpleasant, and Kambo is definitely, there's no high to it at all. It's just a heavy, serious detox and a sharpening of the left brain and those discernment skills that we all need. So I want to encourage you, trust your instincts, develop them, practice them. Use news as a way to dig a little deeper and ask yourself what's really going on. What is the story that I really should understand? Because the stuff going on in England, that's no story. That's people gossiping and behaving badly. That's not news that we need. We need to know who's influencing our lives and affecting our lives positively or negatively. So, happy Sunday. I'll keep digging. Mr. Lambermont Weber's website is very deep. It's a lot of the titles I can't even explain to you. I've got to look them up myself and go, ooh, it's going to take a little extra caffeine in the morning to pay attention to that. But I will be paying attention, and I hope you will as well. Thank you for listening, and I'm here with you. If you have any questions or anything you want me to look into, please send me a note and put a message. And namaste, y'all. I honor the God that you are.